time I decided to make a certain experiment on my vlog in which I'm not gonna talk about one, but this time I want to talk about two at the same time. Not like what usually my specials in which I talk like for like more than eight at a time and all this stuff. This time I decided to make this a little bit of a double feature, considering certain circumstances that led me to this. For starters, it for starters, I want to talk about these movies in just one video because it is very interesting that the big, how can I say, the biggest coincidence that these two movies have, but also they're kind of a little bit related with each other, is that both movies are based on a Stephen King story, and also those two were made when Stephen King was using a pen name. Whether you agree with the guy or not, there's I gotta say that I gotta admit that he does have a certain talent on his writing, that he has some interesting ideas. Some are more good than the others, and I'm not exactly kind of like the biggest fan of all his works. Although it was kind of like during that time that anything that he worked on, then it becomes an inspiration for all these movies and all this stuff, that it kind of built up a little bit of a generation of people that are interested in his kind of writing, I'll say. I mean, he's very interesting when he comes up with some of the weird stuff that like Mystery or It or Pet Cemetery, all this stuff. But the huge thing is, and the huge thing is that those two movies, like I said, they were written when he started out becoming publishing his novels, but he went on using a pen name. And those movies in particular are none other than the Long Walk and the Running Man. Although I do have to admit one thing, is that I did watch The Long Run a long time ago, but certain circumstances couldn't let me film a vlog out of it. I was going through a lot of things during that time. So at first I decided to drop it and probably talk about it on my New Year's review, but then The Running Man came, and then I kind of found out how the coincidence of those two in terms of where they come from. So I thought that, you know what, I can probably combine those two and try to make it as quick as possible, because I don't think there's too much to talk about all of those. So it brought me here, and I think it's a good time to exercise my way to talk briefly on each movie and my thoughts about it. So let's go with the first subject, which is none other than the Long Walk, which basically is a story that is kind of like this dystopian world in which youngsters are labeled kind of like lazy and all this stuff, and in order to prove themselves, there is this contest that I heard that some volunteers, well, it's mostly volunteer work, in order that they're gonna televise this group of young adults, and the point is that they sign up, and after a certain period of time, they're gonna walk. They're gonna walk in the watchful eyes of the television, and of course the military who are following them on a tank or everything. And the point is, they just must walk, no rest, no stop whatsoever. They just walk. because they have to walk until one is left behind. Well, there can be only one. The winner will get anything at once, and of course, a lot of money. But the losers, they're gonna get shot. They're gonna get killed. And they give them kind of like warnings that saying that if they give them like 3 warnings, they get shot. And there's no excuse. You can't sleep. You can't have potty breaks. Nothing. They must walk. Apparently because this increases the morale of others, and basically the whole thing is just it's just kind of like a strenuous walk. And the movie does a good job on showing that tension, because you kind of follow most of the characters, especially the kind of like the main lead, who he has a mother, and then he bonds with another guy, and then other two, and they kind of become kind of like a Stand By Me kind of group. They calling themselves the Four Musketeers. The Four Musketeers. And each of these characters, they have kind of like their own reason, their own snark, and saying, hey, I can do it. But then reality sinks in, and well, they just trying to help each other to keep on walking, but it's useless because, well, they got themselves into it. I gotta admit that I just came out liking the movie, and I will agree with some people by saying that this is probably one of the better Stephen King movie adaptations that there is. It's just that I wouldn't say that it's the best. I'll say I will probably say that it's the best for a long time. How many years has it been since someone adapted a Stephen King universe that it kind of comes up as universally praised? In my case, I could say that I did. It's been a long time. I'm like I said, I'm not exactly kind of like the biggest Stephen King universe. People will say that a lot of things about it. People will say how it was a good movie, and I'll say that yes, it is good, in which it is a little bit more faithful to the novel that I haven't read. But let's face it, that Pennywise is no contest to Tim Curry Pennywise. That there is no contest on that. But continuing on with the long walk, it is strenuous, I'll say. The cinematography and the pacing, while it's a little bit slow, you are keep at the edge of your seat as far as I remember, and when things get brutal, I gotta say, is really brutal. Like for example, with I think there are some moments in which actually you just cringe, because of the injuries that they get. Like what will happen if you have if you break your ankle and you must keep on walking, and what will happen if the ankle gets swollen to the point that the leg looks kind of like dangle, the foot that looks dangling. That's nasty. Or some guy who loses his mind, tries to get on the tank, and then his legs get flattened like pancakes, and the guy screams, and while the military is like, this is your first warning, this is your second warning, okay, last chance. That is kind of like brutal. But I'm not gonna lie that there are moments that can get a little bit unintentionally funny, but I mean unintentionally, and that is none other than the guy who plays the general, Mark Hamill. Whatever stance you have with Mark Hamill, I gotta say that he is very, very much kind of like a gem when it's about voice acting. But in this case, the way he talks, kind of like this over the top G.I. Joe kind of character, is kind of comes up a little bit too cartoonish to the point that it is either funny, but at the same time it kind of does its job of making the kind of like this slimy kind of character that basically, it's basically the kind of like the top general saying that I'm military bad. I'm gonna show you that you have to be tougher and all that. But basically, yeah, yeah. With I didn't really talk about the cinematography. There were some flashbacks that kind of goes a little bit with the pacing and all this stuff, and a little bit to give it some negative out of it. But still, the movie, despite the carnage that the movie has, it still has some great interactions with the character. That this is what that basically is the heart of the movie. The interaction, especially of our main character, played by Cooper Hoffman, and of course, the guy. The guy who he befriends, played by David Johnson, who I think that he finally is making up for his disappointment on what was it, the Alien movie from last year. I'm sorry. As much as you were good in that movie, I still cringe when you try to be hit by what was it? Get away here, you bitch. Yeah, you tried too hard with that lines. I'm sorry, but at least you make it up with that one. And there's some things that I kind of forgot about it, but I will say that I did check on some cliff notes of the novel, and the ending is, I have a little bit kind of like a mixed bag, I'll say. I mean, in the term of that, I wouldn't say mixed bag. I was just kind of like giving kind of like a passable way to feel like, okay, this is what happened, and that is because they slightly alter a little bit the ending from the original, but they expanded a little bit and weirdly enough, it kind of ended almost in the same note of the novel. So it's just the exact same with the novel, but just twisted around in some way or another. But the way things kind of happened, it felt like, well, I don't know. I don't know. It feels kind of like satisfying, or I mean, not every ending should satisfy you. Sometimes you can even kind of like give it a vague note of hopelessness, because honestly, this is basically Stephen King's way of writing in some of those novels, in which almost I think that 80% of his novels, they always never end with a happy ending. They almost end with sometimes bittersweet, or sometimes it's like, we might get away from this one, but I don't know. Doesn't feel like green pastures over there. It's almost like a Korean movie. Sorry for all those Korean films, but so The Long Walk, I will say that it is. I do have kind of like a certain recommendation to, if you like Stephen King novels, or if you want to see a lot of people just walking and walking and walking, going through, people going through a lot of things that they go through the journey. I mean, it could be a pretty scenery, or sometimes you see people cheering on them, or saying that, hey, we did, you're doing this for them, or one by one, all these walkers just getting injured, having diarrhea in the middle of everything, or going insane. It's kind of like, it's a torture, I'll say. People talk. Oh yeah, now that I think about it, the thematic, I think that he was trying to criticize, so the Vietnam soldiers during the time period. Which is funny, because the more I watched the movie, I thought it was gonna be a little bit like Donald Duck's War Short, in which Fall In Fall Out it was called, in which he just a long walk, even though he got arrested. But Okay, that's all I have to say about The Long Walk, at least for giving a small review out of it. Let's see if I can do the same with The Running Man after this small break. Did I say intermission? I forgot that I'm not live streaming. So yeah. The second coincidence about this double feature that I'm doing this vlog is that we came from people walking, and now it's about people running. Well, one guy. Basically, I'm gonna talk about The Running Man, but before that, both movies also are films that I got hooked mostly because of the trailer. But The Running Man in particular, there are a few reasons that I went into it. Many people are mostly remember The Running Man because there is this 80s movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which basically is kind of the same concept, but it's instead of making kind of like one of those Stephen King depressive horror kind of story. This one is more the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger actually is more of those cheesy popcorn action flicks. They just only took the concept and you can't go wrong with Arnold Schwarzenegger to give us some action movies. I only saw that movie only once, and I do remember being entertained. And people up to this day they kind of have a little bit of a fondness to it. But now we got this new adaptation of The Running Man, but this time we got director Edgar Wright directing the film, and this time he's gonna follow it a little bit more closer to the source material, making it's not the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing that took a few creative liberties. This one, no, they decided to go through with it, and people I remember they were excited because there are people who are really big fans of Edgar Wright. I think he's an okay director. I haven't seen most of them, but I do enjoy films like Shaun of the Dead or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Although I am not exactly kind of like the biggest fan of what was it? It was coming to my mind. Oh, at World's End, the World's End. The one they bar hop all these things. I thought it was okay. Oh yeah, Baby Driver. I love Baby Driver. That was a great film. I consider it Baby Driver to be one of the best movies I saw that year. And so, and the trailer, it really shows some of the stuff that Edgar Wright's way of filmmaking was gonna do. I mean, it has some of those stuff. I mean, he even got Michael Cera in it. It's obviously an Edgar Wright movie. But then I kind of begin to hear some negatives about this movie, and so I decided to go to the movie theater. It was one of those days that I couldn't go on a Tuesday because I usually want to take advantage of the half price thing. So I had no choice but to go to matinee, which unfortunately it is getting more expensive. But let me tell you that I was so lucky because I gotta say, you won't believe what happened. You won't believe what happened during my watch of The Running Man. We were having me and the audience were having kind of like a normal watching. We were concentrated on the movie, and after the hour and probably hour and a half of the movie, 70% of it, then the fire alarm begins to sound. The movie stops, and everybody had to get out of the mall and stay there. And lo and behold, there was a small fire on the movie theater. Luckily, not to destroy it, but the firefighters came. They took advantage of it. Not taking advantage. They put it out, and job's done. So we had to wait like 20 minutes in order to have things all under control. and then luckily, thankfully because of projection technology, we could manage to continue the movie where we left off. But also, they gave us some re-entry tickets for another movie. So, now I got a free movie ticket. I'm gonna plan which one I'm gonna watch. But anyway, despite that thing, I don't think that The Running Man was one of the worst movies that there is. Probably, yeah, Edgar Wright's one of the weakest movies, but not in the sense that it was terrible groaning, in a sense, because you kind of not take it too seriously. You can tell that The Running Man is just basically a messy popcorn flick that you just go with the flow, and that's that. Although there are some things that I do want to talk about it. It's basically the premise that it's another dystopian world in which the rich people are being governed by the rich people are not. Okay, let me put my thing straight. Okay, here's the thing. Society is now governed by this rich corporate that is kind of like the network. They control television and all those things, and they stay rich, and of course, the poor people are even in worse situation. They're in the slums, and they have to go around, watching the network that they televise all these game shows that are pretty sadistic, and most notably is The Running Man, which is basically they pick up three people with different backgrounds, and the point is that they have to run or be on the run from some hunters and other people that they can snitch on them, and they have to survive for 30 days, and if they get killed, they die. Of course, that sounds stupid, but of course, if they survive 30 days, they're gonna get rich. They're gonna get paid a lot of money. They're gonna be settled for life. But of course, The Running Man is really, really hard, and no one made it. In this case, we concentrate on a guy named Ben Richards. He's played by Glenn Powell. And if there's a kind of like a silver lining of this movie, is Glenn Powell. He makes a great job on the character. He plays this guy who is a father. He has his baby son or daughter. He has a baby who is sick with the flu, but unfortunately he doesn't have a job because he lost his job while trying to save lives. But unfortunately, that's a no-no. He's been blacklisted, and he had a hard time looking for a job. And because he's desperate that his baby has the flu, and they don't have enough to buy medicine, they just he decides to go to the game show, and then he takes the big gamble on The Running Man. But it's mostly persuaded by the producer of the whole network, who was played by Josh Brolin. I think it was Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin. Yes, it was Josh Brolin. Yeah, let me double check that. Let me double check if it is him. By the way, sometimes my name escapes me sometimes. Give me a second, because it was just Brolin. Yes, Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I guess that's kind of like name skills. Okay, but but the biggest thing about The Running Man is that basically The Running Man also coerces people by showing them their background, which are easily edited by AI to make them look like bad guys. And of course, our hero is like, this is full of BS, and he has this anger issue that he say, oh, you guys are gonna pay. But now he's on the game, and of course there's people. Oh yeah, there's also the host played by Coleman Domingo, who you can tell that this guy has an energetic charisma that he makes it a great host. Please, if Steve Harvey retires from Family Feud, I think we know who's gonna be the next Family Feud guy, because he has the charisma. He kind of looks a little bit like Ernie Hudson. Not gonna lie, when he was younger. Um, when he was younger. So it's basically kind of like this video game plot that you have to go from one place to another and stay alive. And he must wear disguises. He encounters people who either, most of them help him, or some others they betray him. Others they find him. They use him as an inspiration to topple down this kind of like this elitist government. Let's say it's a hard way to say that it's a government, because yeah, everything is controlled by this kind of like Big Brother situation in which they control the media. So basically, they control the truth and all this stuff, and that makes our hero's journey kind of harder. And well, how could I say? You can tell that this movie also has a little bit of some tonal shifts that personally I didn't have much of a problem, but depending on how you take it, you're gonna say that, okay, this thing's got a little bit too serious, so why the corny humor? Because in my way, I mean, you should have known with Edgar Wright, the kind of guy, how he is. Even though people will say that this movie doesn't feel like an Edgar Wright kind of film. I mean, because in one instance you're gonna see some guy who is doing his hardest to survive in order to go with his to support his wife and child. And then we got some guy who is kind of like this conspiracy theorist who acts like this masked YouTuber, which he basically kind of have this MTV kind of style of being saying, "Hey, what's going on, dude? This is the truth that I'm telling you. Look at this. It's kind of like a conspiracy theorist. If he was kind of if the 90s had YouTube." That's the best way I can describe that moment. Or then we get kind of like the kind of character, the moments in which he's down in the slum. He doesn't know what to do. Oh my god, what can I do? I have no. They're telling lies. They think that I am a sadistic asshole who will kill off a lot of people. And then in an instant, we get to see Michael Cera's rendition of Home Alone. With traps and everything. That part was insane. In which, probably, I would say that apart from Glenn Powell, Michael Cera's character was probably my favorite with that with that Home Alone contraptions. That it was just, what in the world? And it's during that moment that the fire alarm kick in. So in a way, my mind was a little bit shut down, and I just went with the flow, with the cinematography, because the action was pretty good, I'll say, and I would say that a little bit of cinematography and it goes with it, but then I kind of began to see where it began to falter, mostly in the last 30 minutes of the movie. This is where you can notice a little bit more of the rush things, that some things that doesn't sink in until you take it a little bit too seriously, because sometimes the side character, they give them enough kind of like too much importance than the main character. So a little bit of world building felt like you needed a little bit more, especially when you get this last minute character that it kind of shook that character's arc. Kind of went a little bit too quick. Let me tell you, a little bit too fast. That you kind of couldn't sink in emotionally to care for that character. And yes, then it also pulls out just like the long walk, that it follows mostly the novel, even though I haven't read the novel, just the cliff notes. And of course they twist the ending a little bit to make well, how can I describe it? Have you seen Animal Farm? It's just like the, how can I say, the animated movie, in which the book ends really somber, depressing, and hopeless. But then the ending of the animated movie, they kind of added up to try to make it a little bit more upbeat and hopeful, if you wanna call it like that. This Running Man, they kind of do it a little bit of the same, but it was I will say that I'll say that maybe it's a thing that I could either take it with pride or take it with stride. That's the best way. That's the best way I can describe it. But although it did come off a little bit kind of like extended, especially when they used the '90s YouTuber kind of thing for that. It was more kind of like it's almost like the movie was too serious, and then Edgar Wright's funny persona came down. It was like, no, this is how it happened. So, but in a way, I didn't regret watching the movie. I know that the movie, it kind of hammered a little bit too much the theme about rich and poor, propaganda, the themes of propaganda, the theme of AI, that it kind of hammered into your head, and I get it. That's how that's how I think the Running Man was. A little bit heavy-handed on the tone and all this stuff, but yeah, I just kind of enjoyed the movie for what it is, but I didn't came out hating it like many others. Let's say that I will say that I was in the middle of the road. If you're not looking to be something too serious about it, so I can understand why it's disappointing for most. Again, it's kind of like the middle of the road, and I get it. I think I was I probably wasn't the correct move to not make it too seriously. So this is my double feature of talking about people walking and people running. So whether you walk or run, this is how the pacing of life works.